Welcome, students. Thank you guys all for attending our Black History Month event today. We'd like to give a warm welcome to Dr. Gregory Sawyer, Vice President of Student Affairs at Channel Islands State University. He was so kind. This is his second event that he's done for ASG. Thank you so much, Dr. Sawyer, for coming on short notice. This is part of our Heritage Theme Months that we're initiating as ASG. I hope you students will join us. We're going to be celebrating Women's History. So hopefully some of you students, when you see those flyers, you guys will come out and attend. And I would like to thank you once again, Dr. Sawyer, for being here. And Dr. William Gregory Sawyer is the founding Vice President for Student Affairs at California State University, Channel Islands. He completed his bachelor's degree in Communications and English from Mount Union College in Alliance, Ohio. His master's degree is Organizational Communication Behavior at Eastern New Mexico University in Portales, New Mexico, and his PhD in Higher Education Administration at the University of North Texas in Denton. Upon completion of his PhD, Sawyer was appointed Assistant Dean of Students at UNT. Within a period of 4 years, Sawyer was promoted to Associate Dean and then Dean of Students, where he was also a member of the Communication faculty. After 10 years as a Dean and faculty member at UNT, Sawyer was appointed the founding Dean of Students and Chief Student Affairs Officer at Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, Florida. After 6.5 years at FGCU in 2002, Sawyer became CI's inaugural Vice President for Student Affairs. In 2004, Sawyer was recognized as the most distinguished Black citizen by the Ventura County chapter of the NAACP. In 2005, he was recognized by the students at CI with the Maximus Award as Outstanding Administrator of the Year. In 2007, Sawyer was recognized by the Association of College Personnel Administration as the Senior Practitioner of the Year. In 2008, Sawyer was presented with the prestigious Wong Family Excellence Award, which recognized 5 outstanding faculty members and 1 university administration for the California State University system. Sawyer was selected as the Outstanding Administrator of the Year out of 46,000 faculty and staff in the California State University. In 2012, Sawyer was recognized by the National Association of Student Personnel Administration as the recipient of the Scott Goodnight Award for Outstanding Performance as Vice President for Student Affairs. And in 2013, Sawyer was appointed by Governor Brown to the California State Aid Commission as the California State University System Representative. It is an honor to host our Black History Month keynote speaker, one of the most distinguished educators, student advocate, and community activist in the state and county. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. William Gregory Sawyer.
Good job.
Man, it really sounds good when you write it yourself, doesn't it? Anyway, it's really a pleasure to be here again, and I really do look at this as an opportunity. We've talked so much since I've been here almost 14 years about relationships between Oxnard College and Cal State Channel Islands. It only took me 12 minutes to get here. Now, I wasn't driving all that fast. I mean, but if you go to back roads, you can really get here in about 12 minutes. So the fact is that we need to make sure that we have those relationships, but also not just the relationships administratively, but the relationships of having this kind of thing going on with our faculty, our staff, and our students that we can share then in this kind of environment. So I'm excited to be here, and particularly, I always joke because, you know, someone is like me, the month of February, I get pretty busy. Everybody forgets about me in July. Boy, in February, I got a busy agenda. I tell you what, everybody want to see the brother in February. But there really are some important things that are facing us today in terms of social issues, things that we know that we're responding to, things that have happened that I know the communities now are feeling very much a passion. And there are going to be some things that I'm just simply going to shock some of your sensibilities, because I know how we think sometimes, and I know we think in a parochial way that, well, if the media says we should do this, then I guess we do that. But I grew up in the period of the revolution. I am that child. The school where I went as an undergraduate was only 20 minutes away from Kent State University. So I was there, and some of you just too young to know what that means. The older folks in the crowd go, we know Kent State. But 4 college students were killed there on campus during a protest. And by the way, the National Guardsmen, they actually thought that they had rubber bullets. They didn't know that they had live rounds. So those are some of the things that as we talk about it, some of the issues that are out there, that we're all part of this complex system called the United States of America and the human race. We're all part of it. So when I talk today about African American history, it's really more so than that. It really is American and world history that we're going to talk about. And those things that each and every day help to stimulate us as a culture and as a people as a whole. You know, I was doing research the other day. Tomorrow I'll be at the American, or AJU, American Jewish University. And it's really interesting because I've done this now for them for 14 years, and I do what's called the Prejudice Awareness Summit. And we bring in high school and middle school kids, and we bring them in, and they train them the entire day on how to deal with issues of racism in the United States and how they should confront it because they live in East LA, they live in Watts, they live in Compton, they live in Encino. There's all these different places where they may live, but how they address the issues of social and justice as well as social injustice. So I could give you a lot of history, but I want to start off with something I think is really important. There's a young man by the name of Shung Yu. And Shung Yu is from a village of Oryalai. It's in obviously it's in Asia. And Sung Yu, it was this young man that he was the youngest of 12 kids. And I'm gonna walk around, by the way. I teach public speaking, so I gotta do it kind of with you guys. I'm not Jerry Springer, but I kind of like to get among the people.
That's all right.
But Shung Yu was an interesting person because he was only 6 years old. But Shung Yu was the one in his family that had energy, he had compassion, he had love, but he didn't know how to be recognized because he was the baby. And any of you that are the baby in the family, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's hard. And with clothing, because sometimes in the clothing you get the hand-me-downs. And that's if you're lucky enough to be the same gender. Because if you're not, you're still going to get somebody's hand-me-downs, and they could be your big sister's hand-me-downs if you're the fella. But Shung Yu was such an interesting person because what he tried to do was get his family's attention and didn't know how to do it. And one day he went up to a wise man in the village and he said, "Sir, you know what? I love my family, but I don't know what to do in order to get everybody's attention." He said, "Son, I have an opportunity for you. Here's what I'd like for you to do. I'd like for you to be the one, because I have to tell you, Oryalai has no modern facilities, doesn't have roads, doesn't have any plumbing, so there's no indoor bathrooms, nothing like that. They didn't have roads. They had the oxen that would pull in their carts that had wooden wheels. So in this community, water was a big deal, kind of like it is a big deal in California. It's a big deal. So he said, I would like for you, Shung Yu, to walk along, and I want you to bring water down from the stream, and I want you to bring it back and put it in the well, right here in the city of or the center of our town." So he thought, man, this is a great idea. This is wonderful. And every day he would make this trip 3 times a day. Well, Shung Yu loved the idea that he was going to do something important. The family members could see him, and they would wave to him along the way and say, "How, that's Shung Yu, that's my brother, that's Shung Yu." And the parents said, "That's my son, I am so proud." The unfortunate thing is, about middle of the week, one of the buckets ended up getting a hole in it. And Shung Yu didn't know that. And as he's walking along, he realized as he was carrying the water on both shoulders, 2 buckets, he realized that one was a little bit lighter. And so when he ended up getting to the well, each time he was always a half a bucket low. At the end of the week, Shung Yu did not have enough water in the well. And he went up to the wise man, the village elder, and said, "Sir, I'm sorry, I have failed you. I've embarrassed my family. I was unable to do the small task that you gave to me." And he took Shung Yu and said, "I want you to walk with me." And as they walked together, he put his arm around this young man and he said, "I want you to take a look as we walked down the road together. And what he saw on the road was these beautiful roses, these beautiful lilies, and these beautiful daffodils that had all grown on the side of the road because he was watering them and he didn't even know it. You see, sometimes we have to look back in order to look forward. And sometimes we don't always see the roses and the daffodils and all those wonderful lilies on the way. We're so busy looking at what has happened to us, we don't look forward to the things that could happen to us and for us. Because we're always looking at somebody who did something because of us or even to us. And so it's easier for me to pass you the ball and blame you for something than it is for me to take the ball and win the game myself. I can never win the game if I don't have the ball. If I put the ball in your corner, I can't do anything. And so when I look at some of the passions and some of the things that are going on in our country today, and I empathize as well as sympathize. My best friend in school, Richard Clark, died of a heroin overdose. My friend, Steve Lewis, unfortunately, will never get out of jail because he killed his wife. There were 3 of us that grew up together, and I'm the only one that's alive and not incarcerated because I had a plan. I had an idea of what I was going to do. But more importantly, each and every one of us, we were advocates in our communities. And we talked about what it is that we need to do in order to be successful. So as we look at things that happened in Ferguson, and we look at things that have happened actually throughout the country and throughout the world, we know those things will continue to happen unless we make a change. But where are those changes? In 2008, we showed up for the party. Everybody got out and voted in that first black president. Lord, we cried, right? We cried. I know I bawled. My mom, 93 years old. She always said, I will never live to see a black president. She lived to see a black president twice. And we cried. We cried during the inauguration. We cried. People are hollering all over the country. We were like a one-unit country, a one-race country, because everybody got out and voted. You know what happened in 2010? The midterms. And y'all didn't show up. Y'all showed up for the party. You didn't show up for the after party. So in 2010, we ended up getting a group that every time the president would try to do something, you had a Congress that would block him. Because we didn't show up. We showed up for the big one, but we didn't show up for the midterm. Shoot, 2012, we back out again. Shoot, everybody voted me in, landslide. 2014, y'all didn't show up for the party again. Y'all didn't show up for that one. And you want him now because now he no longer has a Congress, he doesn't have a Senate. You got a quarterback with no line. How in the world are you gonna score anything if you don't have anybody blocking for you? We got people that want to say he's the worst president ever. And that's only blockage for the person who was before him. But we're out talking and we're doing that, but we're not doing anything about it. Because we can always talk about hands up or I can't breathe. You know what? If you voted in 2010 and 14, shoot, you could be breathing a lot better. Because all the people that are doing a messing, throw them the heck out of office. Get them out of there. You don't like them and they stinking up your neighborhood, vote them out. But we can't keep passing it off and saying, look what they're doing, when I'm not even doing it myself. I take away my own power if I give it to you. Why do we blame people when we are not taking in charge ourselves? And so that's the part I know that shocks people's sensibilities, because people want me to say, Dr. Sawyer, get out there and get that message. Tell them how wrong they are. Tell them how abused we are. I would love to. And I know those things happen. But I also know the only way we can win this game is if we participate. Otherwise, you're a victim. And I am nobody's victim. I'll be out talking, preaching, anything I need to do. You see, there were people, as we go back, and as you hear, the topic for today is not black history, but black future. It's about our future. It's about the young people that are coming along that need to understand that they come from kings and queens. The fact is, the person, one of the captains, Pedro Alonso Nino, came over with Christopher Columbus. Y'all don't know that. Well, some of y'all do. But we weren't necessarily taught that. I had to steal my history. I don't know about you. I had to steal it. Because if you're Latino, if you're African American, if you're Native American, there's a real good likelihood you have to go in some deep, dark journals in a scientific library somewhere and look up the research. I did because I thought all I did was cause the Civil War. I thought that's what I gave to history. And Abraham Lincoln had to be my favorite president. Exactly. But if you know a little about Abe was political. Abe was not going to marginalize his presidency. He knew what he needed to do now. He did some good things and he did some very powerful things, and he's a magnificent, legendary person. But he didn't free all of y'all because he wanted y'all to be free. There's some things that were going on that Abe had to do. It was a political necessity. Because he still was raised in a time. He can't help that he was still raised in that time period. Now, I still love me some Abe Lincoln because I think Abe was a man. But at the same time, we need to read our history and not have it handed to us. You see, because then anybody can tell you anything and you will believe it. Because all you got to do is put on TV and you go, it had to be true. It was on Channel 4. It got to be true. And so we believe those things because we haven't read. I always tell my students, if I put $10 in a book, it'll be there in 20 years because y'all ain't never going to pick it up and read it. I can hide anything I want to in a book and it'll never get found. Of course, now they say, well, Doc, you know, everything now, I can get all my books on iTunes. I could hide it there too. You wouldn't find it. The fact is that we're not reading. We're reading our textbooks. And some of y'all buy those $100, $200, $300 textbooks, and y'all don't even open them. You don't know what I'm talking about. We're talking truth. So we have to take responsibility. So you can have a Pedro Alonso Nino or Esenamico Durantes. And if you don't know who those folks are, you should look them up because they're black and they're brown. And they have a Latino or Hispanic surname. Yeah. So the person who actually discovered the areas of Arizona and New Mexico was a person who was a slave that was raised by Spaniards. Esenamico Durantes. Now they end up killing him because he basically was trying to be a pimp. But he did indeed help to discover that area. Yeah, you know, he was trying to play off favors. Like, if you do this, I'm going to give you this much land. If you do this, I'm going to give you this much land. And, oh, I sure like the ladies. And I guess they didn't like the way they were treated, so they kind of took him out. But the fact is that we don't know some of this history. And that saddens me. Because all we know is what's been handed to us. So if you're Latino, you're Chicano, and you go through and you go, man, all I know is this. You know how you've been treated, but you don't know your history. And you can only be upset with yourself if you're not taking the time to find out who you are and what you've contributed. You know, I could give you all the typical gas mask, you know, the Garrett Morgans, and, you know, African Americans invented this and we did that. And, you know, we do a lot of first. Let me tell you what I did when I was in my doctoral program. I was at a school that is known for music. It's known for jazz. It's the University of North Texas in Denton. 7 Grammy nominations. Nora Jones went there, kind of give you an idea. But this school is known for that. In fact, we just won another Grammy for composition in the last Grammys. So this is a music school. I'm a doctoral student, right? And I put in the school paper that Beethoven was black. The faculty lost their mind. Upset with me. I'm faculty. faculty, we're still upset with me. Why do you say he's black? Well, I know he came from this part and this part and this part and here, and I gave him all the history, and I gave him the demographics from which his grandmother came. Now, he would have been part black. He wasn't whole black, you know, whatever the whole black means. But if you were down south, we had rules for that. You were an octoroon, you were a quadroon, you were a mulatto. I mean, they took us down to percentages. If you had anything in you that looked like me, you were one of me. Because that's how it was defined. I got a great-grandfather that's blonde hair and blue eyes. And he was black. Somebody was in the woodshed. And we laugh and we know it to be true. And yet at the same time, I shock the sensibilities of individuals, if nothing else, to get the conversation started. Why would it be bad if Beethoven were black? It wasn't like he was doing rap. Why y'all upset? It was really neat to start the conversation on the campus until one of our scholars, who was a professor emeriti on the campus, and he had come back after many years. And he simply said to everyone, it doesn't matter what was in Beethoven's gene pool. The fact is, the music that he made was for all colors and all people. And I would embrace the fact that if indeed he is part of the African American race, whatever the percentage of the blood would have a whole new color to his music. That's how we need to embrace who we are. That's how we need to embrace our civilization as the human race. And so I look at this thing in terms of the Black History Month that started off being a day, then became a week, and then it became a month, and then of course then it went from black, and then it was also Afro-American, and then it was African-American. It's been all kinds of things, but the sentiment is the same. It's the opportunity to enjoy and to celebrate the contributions of individuals throughout this country and throughout the world, the contributions that have been made by individuals to make this a better place in which we live. That's the nature of what we are celebrating today in this month. And so it doesn't matter what you look like. It only matters that you can appreciate the contributions which many of you are the recipients of. So true enough that when you go to a stoplight and somebody doesn't hit your car, thank a brother. And that stoplight was indeed invented by that person. But we could go on and on and on, and once again, I won't do that to you. But I do want to talk a little bit more about going to the future, and what are the things that we need to do? Where do we need to be? STEM, science, technology, right? Engineering, mathematics. I just did a search today, so the faculty will appreciate this. I just did a search today of doctoral degrees for African Americans in the hard sciences. In 2006, out of 2,100 degrees, 0 African Americans received a doctorate in the hard sciences in 2006. 2,100 degrees. That's scary. You guys can look up the same information. I actually have it in my car if you'd like to look at it too. That saddens me when I think about that. But also too, when you start looking at some positive numbers. So there's a program that I just did on Sunday. It's called Super Sunday, and it's where the CSUs go to historically black churches, and we do a program, and the program is really just kind of letting people know about the accessibility of the CSU system. And so they go to churches throughout the state of California, I think 100 up north and 100 down south that we go to. And one of the things I share with them is the numbers that are increasing in terms of the Latino and African American populations for doctorates. And I say doctorates because this is where I'd like to start. But if you start looking at it, what's really neat, that in 1977, you had less than 20% of your people who were getting degrees who are Latino to go on and to get a doctoral degree. Now you have in the neighborhood, in fact, what was really interesting, my wife is Latina and she has a PhD, and her doctorate, I'm looking at 56% of the doctoral degrees that are being given in terms of Latinos are given to Latinas. Yes. Fellas, at your challenge. Yeah, you're gonna have to deal with some heavyweight women, baby. Yeah, challenge that. Wow, okay, but let's move over to African Americans. Guess what? 58%. Fellas. That means they're out hitting the books. That means they're out making it. It means they're doing the things that we're not doing it. And we've got to be partners in this relationship. So first and foremost, there's a responsibility for us to go ahead and do those things in our community. Most of us are reaching out in our community, but we're not reaching back into our community. So we got to get whatever we're getting and take it back. That's part of Black Future. And we're going to make a difference in our communities. We got to come back to our communities. We can't get ours moved to Malibu and stay there, right? Drive our nice little fancy car and not come back. We've got to be back. You know why? Because people need to see. They need to see that I can and I will achieve. My dad was not able to go, well, he went to college. He went to school, Morehouse, which is where Dr. King went. My dad also went to medical school for 3 years, but they pulled him out. Anybody have an idea why they pulled him out of medical school?
The war.
The war. You know what happened in the war? He was a medic. And they wouldn't let white soldiers, white medics, work on black soldiers. Yeah. Fighting for the freedom of America. But there are only 2 black medical schools at the time, Meharry and Howard universities. Those are the only 2. And Meharry's a dental school. My dad was taken out of school along with his entire class of 3rd-year medical students. Were all taken out so they could be medics. But one of my favorite stories my dad told me, I'll never forget this one, is when my dad heard someone holler out in the field, "Medic, medic!" And there was a guy and literally his guts were hanging out. And my dad goes over to help him. And this gentleman puts a rifle up to his forehead and said, "Nigger, I would rather my friend die than to have you touch him." And my father kind of pushed the rifle aside and put his .45 and said, "Why don't I save him and let him make that decision?" You see, we live in a world of duplicitous acts. We live in a world where we need to make change. But we only can make change if we're participating in it. So if we first start then with that group that's going to educate our community. It's not always about the numbers, it's about the quality. I want to get quality in there. So let's get people who are going to educate, who are going to write the books. If you don't like what's in the book, write one yourself. And then be mad at people because they didn't read it. But the fact is, you want to make sure that you write the story the way it's supposed to be written. Don't get mad at somebody because they left us out of history. Then write the history the right way. Don't be a victim. Let us not be a victim of our own circumstance. Let's create our own. My wife gave a speech the other day to student support service students, a part of the TRIO program, and I love it. She started off her speech by saying, "I'm a statistic. I shouldn't even be here. I should be picking tomatoes, potatoes, and onions. But instead, I got a PhD and I'm an assistant provost. And I work in a medical school. I am a statistic, but I'm the new statistic because I'm the statistic that's going to take advantage of who I am." And those are the things that I ask that each and every one of us do. If Dr. King had only stood around and accepted the consequences of being an African American or Negro or colored, if he only accepted that, I would not be here speaking today. So we can accept those things, or we could do something about it. So how do we do and go about it? Well, A, we need to educate our population, and thus Oxnard College. And then we need to take it 2 more years beyond that, and we need to go to that next level. And we need to get that baccalaureate degree. And then we need to go 1 more step or 2 more steps beyond that. If we decide to be a medical doctor, if we decide to go on to be an attorney,
or if we want to get that PhD, those things are important to our community. I'm not suggesting everybody here is going to do that. I am suggesting that there's going to be a group of you that will. And then when you decide to make that change, you know somebody else from here, and you're going to pull them in, because we all need to use each other for our different resources that we bring to the table. So let's think about who we know and who we have that's standing around and sitting around here today. The faculty that once you graduate, they're going to be your colleagues. What a wonderful relationship. I've got a buddy of mine, I have the hardest time calling him by his first name. Well, we talk about 3 times a week. I'll just always call him Schro because his name is Schroeder. But I'll never forget, now that he's retired, we're buddies. He always wants to keep up with me and wants to know what I'm doing. My thesis back in New Mexico, he calls it the Bible, because that's what he used to be able to teach people how to write a thesis. That guy's my buddy. I scared the crap out of me when I was a student. But he made me learn. I was told that I wasn't smart enough to go to college. I was told that I should probably use my hands. Go to a place where you can use your hand. Do a trade tech thing. So when I got my undergraduate degree, I sent it to him. And then when I got my master's degree, I sent that to him. Yeah, I got one more coming. And then when I got that PhD, I sent that to him, but they sent it back because he had died, my bad. But I can tell you that what he was trying to do was to motivate me. He tried to motivate me. And I think those are the key things. There's a gentleman by the name of Mr. Washington. I'm going to share Mr. Washington's story because I haven't told this in a long time. And if I get choked up a little bit at the end, it's because it's very, very personal to me. My dad died when I was 13 years old. He died in my arms. And I tried to breathe life back into him. I had gone to this military academy, and I thought that I knew CPR, and I'm trying to do everything. And he literally took his last breath in my mouth. And that was really a hard time for me. You can imagine, I was the only boy in the family, but it was really tough going through that process. But in the end, I have to tell you what I learned from this is that my mom and all the males in the family thought that I needed to have male role models around me. So each one of my uncles took a personal responsibility to be a butt whooper. Everybody was over there to get some. I mean, I didn't mean to scream it. But another one. I mean, I used to shoot. But I had some big uncles too, right? And they played football in college, so they were really big and they were very frustrated. So I ended up having, we used to always do Sunday meals, right? And that was really cool. My dad passed away. We still continue with Sunday meals. But here's the part that I loved. So there's a gentleman that both my sisters had. My older sister had Mr. Washington. I had Mr. Washington, and then my baby sister had Mr. We all had Washington. What was really surprising, my mom had Washington too. We all had Washington. And my mom told me to go by to see him. She said, I think you need to see him, baby. You just need to go by and check out Mr. Washington. I said, all right. Well, you don't say, yes, ma'am. I never said, all right. She would knock you out. So I said, yes, ma'am. I'll go by and see, Mr. Washington. So here I am. I'm in the schoolyard. And as I'm in the schoolyard, I see Mr. Washington. So I'm going to try to go over there and get into his class and say hi to him. I'm a young critter at the time. And so I get in there and I hear him in his class. And he says, now who out there is going to pick up the gauntlet? And he has this great big voice. He's scared to crap. When the bell rang, everybody runs out the classroom. And he's opening up the door and everybody's just like piling out of this thing. And he looks at me and he says, what do you want, Sawyer? I was going to help you pick up that gauntlet thing. If you need help, Mom said I should help people out. So if you need help picking up the gauntlet, I don't know what it is, but I help you pick it up. And he looked at me and said, son, you're not ready. Okay, fast forward a couple years, and we used to call him Professor Washington. And Professor Washington, I've graduated, actually several years later, I graduated from high school. I'm thinking, I looked up what a gauntlet was. I thought, I see what he was doing. That was more like figurative than it was literal. He wanted me to pick it up. He wanted me to pick it up. So I thought, okay, I got this. So I called him up. I said, Professor Washington, this is Greg Sawyer. You know, I graduated from high school. I think I'm ready to help you pick up the gauntlet. He said, son, you're still not ready. And hung up. That's all right. So then I go on and I get this 4-year degree, and I call him up, and I just spent a year in England, right? So I have one of those brothers that say, "What was hell's what I tell you, Mike, you talking like this year, Yeah, I don't know what happened. Got that chameleon thing. So anyway, I called him up and said, yes, Professor Washington, due to the fact of circumstances, what else of various things, now I'm able to comprehend the magnitude of your assertion. So I think that I'm able now to help you to pick up the gauntlet." He hung up. He hung up. Didn't say he hung up. So, well, okie dokie. So I go on and get this other degree. You think I would get tired, but I didn't get tired. I said, I'm gonna try one more time. So I get this master's degree, and I called him up and I said, Professor Washington, I really do. I think I can really help you. I think I can pick up the gauntlet. Unfortunately, Professor Washington said again, son, you are still not ready. He didn't hang up. He didn't say anything. He just was quiet. So I hung up. So finally, the end of this is that I received my PhD, and there's a wonderful article in the hometown newspaper about hometown boy, does well, makes good, doesn't go to jail, got a PhD, working as a dean at a university. Wow, he's 30 years old, check this out. That was like cool stuff, right? And it was really kind of neat, but my mom didn't know the article was coming out in the paper. So I flew home from Texas so that I could be with my mom when she got this. Now, for those of you that will say that any guy that is close to their mom is a mama's boy, I'm going to quote Abraham Lincoln from an Abraham Lincoln fans. Anything that I am and anything that I ever hope to be, I owe to my mother. My mother raised me when I lost my dad. My mom was my best person in my wedding. I didn't have a best man. She was my best person. And so my mom's tough. She's about this big. She's about 4'10". And everybody, when I was playing football in college, and I was like, 6 feet and 230 pounds, and everybody said, well, how did that come out of that? I said, I didn't come out like this, it'll come out this side. So anyway, so I go to my mom's house, and the paper gets delivered. I had cooked breakfast for my mom. We're sitting at the table. She opens up the paper, and it's literally a centerfold with a whole insert paper. There's a picture of me sitting on my mom's stereo, kind of cool, like, kind of, whatever like it was, but you're sitting on the stereo, cool, like you won the Heisman. And it was just a nice occasion. Of course, my mom started crying. Well, okay, I don't know if your mama cries, do y'all cry? Because I had it rolling, man. Mom cry, I'm crying. And the phone rings, and my mom picks up the phone. She said, yes, how are you? Wait a minute, yes, he is. Hold on. It's Professor Washington. I was like, She said, no, it's Professor Washington. I said, She said, it is Professor Washington. I go, She go, pick up the phone. So, mamas, they can only play for so long and then they get down to business. So I pick up the phone and I said, hello? And he goes, Dr. Sawyer. And I said, yes, it's Professor Washington. And I just want to tell you how proud I am of you. And the fact is that now that you have picked up the gauntlet, now you must pass it on. Now, I've been waiting 20 years to get this freaking gauntlet. I got it, didn't know I have it, now I gotta give it away. That was quick. That was like short-lived kind of stuff, right? Like, when did I get it? So he said, I just want you to know that I am so proud of you and the things that you've been able to accomplish. But now it's your turn. And he hung up. 6 weeks later, Professor Washington died. And this is where I get a little choked up. The reason why this is so important to me, because I realized he wasn't telling me I couldn't do it. He was telling me I could do it. just knew what would tick me off enough that I want to show it to him. And so here he passed on something to me, something he teased to me, something that I thought was tangible, but it was more than tangible. He gave me a lifeline. And I followed that lifeline all the way through my life, knowing that there was someone out there that cared about me enough that when my dad died, that he would make me think that I wasn't ready yet. And to the point where I became ready was the most important thing. And so as we look forward to African American and we look at African Americans' future, we're really talking about the future of America. We're talking about lifelines that every one of you can be a mentor or has been a mentor or will be a mentor. You can help someone get to that next level. And if you're in need of a mentor, and we call them sponsors, because a mentor can take you so far, but a sponsor will take you through life. They sponsor you through life. And those are the things that I would say that as we look at a better America, we look at a better California, let's look at how we can be a better person first. Because I can't fix all of you until I fix me first. So the first thing is, what do I need to do in order to work on me? Because a better me can certainly make a better you if we work together. I'll share one other story with you as I close today. There's a young woman, I heard this at a medical school graduation. A young woman who lived in East LA. And I have to tell you, this story always gets me too. And I give this quite often at orientation. So this young lady, she's about 10 years old, and the family is very poor. No father in the family that was around, but there were 5 kids. And what the kids would do is every week, the mom would play this game of, let's go out and find the change. They would go out and find change. And what was really fun about this idea was that every week they would find change in different places, be it in the car, they would find it in the seats, they would find it in the cushions. Every place that we find change, you guys know, we find change. Well, every week that would be the money that they would use in order to buy food. In this particular day, they pulled her in, said, Maria, you're the oldest. I need for you to go in today. This will be your first trip. I want you to go to the corner market, and I want you to buy a half a loaf of bread. I want you to buy a half a pound of bologna and a quart of milk. You have that? She said, yes, ma'am. A half a loaf of bread, a half a pound of bologna, and a quart of milk. Yes. So the young lady goes to the corner market. You guys may know, in fact, this particular location, because I have been there. It's right off of Cesar Chavez. And as you go to that area, at this corner market, and this butcher who owns the place, the young lady's walking in. And if you've ever been poor, and you know what it's like to have those hand-me-downs, and to walk past someone who has something, particularly when they're your classmates. Well, this young lady was actually walking past some of her classmates that were in the shop, and they were eating ice cream cones. And she walks past them, and of course they all have something to say. You know, you can always hear something mumbling under their breath. But she goes right up to the counter, and she puts whatever little change she has on top of the counter, and she said, I'd like to have a half a loaf of bread, a half a pound of bologna, and a quart of milk, please. And so he's out there counting out all the change. Well, when he told her how much it was, she was going to be short. And she was so afraid at that point, because she did not want to be humiliated in front of her friends. And so at the point where he bagged everything up and he gave it to her, and she starts walking away, and she goes, thank God, I actually am going to get out of here. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get out of here. Until finally, the owner goes, the butcher says, young lady, come back here. Now, you know at that point she's scared to death. So she walks back, and all of her friends are looking. And he says, here, you gave me a quarter too much. And gives her a quarter because the ice cream cones cost a quarter. But being the dutiful daughter, she did not buy an ice cream cone, because you know what she did. She took that quarter back home to give to mama. Well, let's fast forward, because she ended up going to UCLA for her undergraduate program, and she ended up graduating from Harvard Medical School. And here here she is at Harvard Medical School, and she now is the speaker. And as she gets up in front of everyone, on the front row is the butcher. She goes into her pocket, she pulls out a quarter, and said, "You just bought an MD from Harvard for 25 cents. You see, the story of our country is about that investment. It is about that 25 cents. It is about that individual who's a Professor Washington. It matters not, as my mom said, you don't need to look like him to look after him. It's about, in this country, we need to look at black future forward versus just black history. Because if we don't know where we're going, then where we've been absolutely has no relevance. The fact is, if you think about Shung Hu, who was more worried about making sure that he filled up the well, but didn't take time to look back and to see what he had created through the water. Also understanding to look in the other direction, what he did in terms of the future of his family. I hope that you will all take in these lessons to understand that the future of who we are as a people, as a human race, are going to be crucial in terms of you being part of the solution. As we think and as we go through and we say hands up, I would like to add to that. Hands up, hands out, vote. Don't let someone take your freedom because you were too lazy to vote. Don't let someone take your freedom because you didn't read. Don't let someone take your freedom because they have an agenda and you haven't read, and they just fill you up with their agenda and you become their puppet. You must learn, you must understand and be responsible for the future of our community, of our state, and of our country. The only way we will make a difference is if we take responsibility and become part of the solution. I would say to you today, take that quarter and invest it in your college, invest it in your friends, invest it in your family, the state of California, and the United States of America. Thank you guys very much for having me.